You're listening to Lyfe and Shyt. I'm Daneyel Walker.
And I'm Tommy Walker.
Join us as we talk about our journey overcoming fears, boundaries, marriage, family, lifestyle, business, and whatever other shit you can think of.
We're individuals that came together to create one unit with one mind and one goal. Welcome to another episode of Lyfe Shit.
Yes, welcome.
Super happy we got a guest. It's always exciting when we have a guest in the building.
It is.
Like especially when they cool as shit.
Yes.
Right. Like
Wait a minute, I'm not hot?
no, you're not hot yet. Not yet.
I'm working my way there.
You know, when you meet somebody for the first time and you hit it off in the studio, it feel like damn, like you feel like we've known each other for a minute and you just showed up. So we'd like to welcome Paul Pantani to the show. Welcome Paul to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you for hanging out with us in the studio.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk about Paul's background. 30-year in law enforcement, and not just your typical, not like your average law enforcement, like Bureau of Investigation, Riverside County, like not in mentorship and training. And I mean, it's a long list, not what you think of regular law enforcement. You did some real cool shit in law enforcement.
It's been an amazing 30 years. It's truly been fun. I've had some ups and some downs, but overall I have zero regrets.
See, that's dope. And then also host of his own podcast called Transition Drill, which we're going to dig into because you actually speak to law enforcement, veterans, first responders about transitioning, which is a very important thing, especially nowadays. And I've had a lot of conversations just this year alone about transition. And that's huge. And we actually was just talking pre-show about Daneyel transitioning from being an MRI technologist to an entrepreneur, which was a huge transition. Right?
It was scary, huge, totally different.
Still
Nothing is the same.
Still kind of dealing with it.
Always changing. Yeah. Always something new.
It's super dope. So again, Paul,
variety is the spice of life.
That's facts. So again, we're honored. And then we got to make this known because we had Ken Barnes on the show.
Yes.
And Ken had brought a bottle of wine that time. Paul had to up the ante.
Yes,
or at least be equal. I just had to at least be the same level.
He came through with a 2017 reserve. You know what I mean?
And then not only that, but Paul, tell us about this woman-owned, veteran-owned winery that you brought to us.
Oh,
so
yes.
I didn't get that part.
My wife and I enjoy wine, as you guys do.
Yes,
and
definitely.
one of the things that I have definitely used to my advantage in doing the podcast is getting the opportunity to talk to former veterans, former first responders who have embedded themselves in the wine industry. So this winery here is Bone Niche. They are a Paso Robles winery. Actually, if you're familiar with the area, it's actually San Miguel, so it would be the north and eastern portion of the Paso Robles area.
Okay.
The owner of the winery is Melanie Harding. She is a Navy veteran. Basically her story is that she was a Navy nurse. When she was stationed in Italy, she went, let me learn about this wine stuff. You know, kind of not really into wine, but started learning it in Italy and just became passionate. And so came back home and wanted to get into it. And an adjacent winery close to hers is owned by Leon Tackett, who is a former Navy EOD guy. Kind of took her under his wing. She's got her own winery now. And the other cool aspect that she's really trying to do is the, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but the green organic thing. She's got goats and pigs and stuff to walk around the vineyards and eat the grass and the weeds and all that type stuff.
Okay.
So it's total. The overall experience is great, but she makes some great wines.
Wow, great wine, and she's doing it right.
That is delicious.
Yeah, it is amazing.
All right, so we need the personal invite.
Yes.
That's
that winery.
Yeah, that is my Ken. I'm sorry.
Did I top it?
That is good. We appreciate you.
Cheers.
Definitely cheers. Thank you.
And for all future guests, now you know what you have to do. It's just that straight.
I love it.
Straightforward.
I love it. Paul, tell us, a lot of times when people come on, people always want to know, are you single and ready to mingle, or are you married?
I am married. Okay. My wife and I just crossed our 5-year anniversary at the end of September.
And you did say that you guys like wine together, so
We
that is
do.
true. That was a spoiler alert.
We're recording down here in San Diego. What got me to draw my wife out of PB was wineries up in Temecula.
That wasn't hard then.
It wasn't, but in the long run, I'm hoping we get back down here because San Diego is such a nice place to live.
So did you were living down here and then moved to Temecula?
No, so you mentioned already, so I work in Riverside County. I was working in Riverside. She was living in PB.
Okay.
And it was quite the drive for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so early in our relationship, Temecula was the midway point. And so I go, okay, I'll just move there, get me a little bit closer. When she wants to come up, it's a little bit closer. And we already were into wine, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, we're going to get married, and work for me needed to be in Riverside. So Temecula is where we ended up.
Okay, and I totally understand because we used to have an office in Riverside, and we used to go to that office. It was in Redlands, right? And once a week, we going up to 15. It's like, my gosh. Eventually, that hike became easy, and we thought about it like maybe we should move to Temecula.
It'd be a little easier.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. But the fact that you moved down, boy, I tell you, love.
Love.
Like the things we do for love.
Hey, I can tell you about the mornings on my motorcycle at 3 o'clock heading back home so I can get to work.
At least you had a motorcycle.
That is true.
Because
That is
that traffic on the 15. Jeez.
That is true. And we talked a little bit about your occupation, so we know exactly like what you do. But tell us a little more about your occupation and what you do now.
Basically, my entire adult life, I have been in law enforcement. I'll throw myself under the bus. In high school, I was a knucklehead. Barely graduated. I say this story all the time. Fortunately for me, in my senior year, I got a new guidance counselor, and she talked to me the way I needed to be talked to, and basically, pull your damn head out of your ass because your 1.97 GPA is not going to prepare you for anything in life. And flat out told me, which branch of the service are you going into? Because you're not going to college. And it was purely just application, and to take a little step backwards, by the time I was 13, my dad and I were just butting heads. And I got into high school and I wanted to play football. And I injured my knee, nothing to the point where it should stop me from playing football. But the doctor gave the very safe answer. I wouldn't recommend that he play because he could re-injure it. That's all my dad needed to hear. You're not playing football.
That was it.
And for me, it was, well, I'll show you. And I just didn't care about school. And so, like I said, senior year of high school, 1.97 GPA at the start of the year. I applied myself, and I brought my average up into like a high C. You could only do so much in 1 year. But as weird as that was, as much as a knucklehead as I was, and I was doing stuff right on that line of really getting in trouble, if you'd asked me, what do you want to do? I want to be a cop. Don't ask me where it came from. I don't come from a long line. I've got nobody in my family that was law enforcement. But
First generation law enforcement, all because you was being an asshole.
Basically. I'm sure if there's any psychologists listening, there's some sort of, I was seeking my dad's approval. And not that he was somebody who was very pro law enforcement, but there was one pivotal moment when I think it might have been my junior year, where they sent home the slips to, hey, they can search your locker whenever they want. And I threw out some stupid thing like, can you believe they want to let the cops search my locker? And his thing was, you let them search your locker anytime they want to, and if you don't, I'll come down there and I'll open it. And I went, oh, my dad likes cops, or at least respects cops.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that had some sort of underlying motivation behind it.
Okay.
So right out of high school, I graduated in June, and by March, I was a cadet, which is basically a paid volunteer within a police department. And the rest is history. That was 1988, and I am still doing it today.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I love that. So we know what you do for work. What about what you like to do for fun?
My new passion outside of wine, last couple of years, is jiu-jitsu. Takes up a lot of my time. I wish I had more time for it. And for anybody who does jiu-jitsu, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but it's, man, I wish I would have started this 20 years ago, or I wish I started this when I was 10 or whatever. But I came into it when I was 52 years old. And so, but it's what I enjoy.
And what made you get into it?
I was always interested in it. Obviously, 30 plus years in law enforcement, you get defensive tactics training, but it's very limited. And it always just kind of was there in the back of my mind. It seemed like it was kind of interesting, kind of fun. And there's a restaurant that my wife and I will walk to in Temecula for breakfast on a regular basis. 2 years ago, we walked by and I'm like, new shop coming in. Text my now, professor. I said, hey, Jason, when are you going to open? You go, open next week. I'm like, hey, babe, let's give this a try. And
she does it with you.
She did it for a little while.
Okay.
She's actually had a knee surgery, and early on, probably about 6 or 8 months into it, unfortunately, just went left when she should have went right, or I don't want to make it sound like she did it. Somebody took her left when they should have taken her right, and enough to tweak her knee. Like, I'm good with this. I don't need to go through another surgery. So you go have fun. I'll sit back here and watch.
Totally understand that. Yeah, I would be like,
oh gosh, you'd be looking at me like, why did you ever do it?
But she'll tell me that all the time when I'm heading to class. Make good decisions.
Yes.
Yeah, facts. Now, it's funny because I have the same desire for martial arts, and I got a buddy that's been doing jiu-jitsu for a few years now. He does it with his son, and me and him about the same age. And it was funny because he had a knot on his head because like a 12-year-old he was sparring with a 12-year-old and he got got the best of him. And I was like, when we hung out, he's like, I'm sore, I'm this, I'm that. He's like, but I love it. Like anybody that does jiu-jitsu, love it.
It's true.
And I found it so impressive.
We're going to obviously talk about, business and ownership. And I really honestly believe that, and I'm trying not to sound cliche, but one of the things about the struggle of jiu-jitsu is it carries over to the rest of your life. Because when you're on the mat and somebody is much bigger than you, much more skilled than you, and basically putting you in a position where you want to quit, but you just in your head say, I'm not going to, you're going to tap if they get you there, but just being uncomfortable and not quitting is a huge life lesson. You mentioned children. My daughter is now doing it. She's a little over a year into it. And the best thing that I've loved watching her is we didn't push it on her. We exposed her to it. Took her to, the funniest thing was I had only been doing jiu-jitsu maybe about 2 months. Went to my first open mat, and for people who don't do jiu-jitsu, there's no structure to it. It's just everybody shows up at the studio and you clap hands, let's start rolling. I was rolling with my professor. He's smaller than me, and basically at the end of it, my daughter goes, Dad, you're so much bigger than him. It's like, that's the skill of it, And it just kind of opened her eyes. Then we took her to a competition, and my professor started a Saturday class. And so when she was coming down for her visits, I go, hey, do you mind if she jumps in? He goes, no, let her give it a try. She took it and ran with it. Nice. And to watch her immerse herself in a different studio closer to where she's living and just headlong into it. And the best experience that I can give you is my professor brought in a very high level competition black belt for a demonstration class. Happens regularly at a jiu-jitsu studio. My daughter's been doing jiu-jitsu at this point maybe 2.5, 3 months. She's 17 years old. When the class gets done and he's like, hey, anybody wants to roll with me? She waited her turn. She went up to him. Hey, I'd like to roll with you. And I'm like, I talked to her afterwards. What do you think you were going to do? And she goes, Dad, when am I ever going to get the opportunity to roll with that level of a black belt again?
That's a fact.
That's right.
That's a
At
fact.
17 years old, she was just like, I'm going for this.
That's dope.
So
That is
it
great.
was so cool to see it through my kids' eyes.
That is great. That is. I would be like, that was my daughter.
I love it. I love it. It sounds like you have accomplished a lot of dreams along with your journey in life. But what are some other dreams that you would like to perhaps have?
My biggest dream right now is to be the best husband and friend to my wife that I can be. I tell everybody who listens to me that I am so fortunate that I found her when I was 48 and not 28, because I finally grew up enough to understand what I had in her or have in her and what I could lose by being a knucklehead myself. The other thing is I've got 3 kids, they're triplets. I want to be that rock that encourages them to take chances. Go live your life. Follow your heart, especially right now. You're 18 years old, heading off to college, follow your heart. See where life takes you. So I want to be that rock that supports them. And then from a selfish side of it, I want my podcast to grow just like yours.
I know that's right.
So that's my big dream right now is that.
I love it.
1,000%.
I love it. I love what you said about being a better husband and a better friend to your wife. Is this your first marriage?
No.
No, it's your second. So usually it takes a couple of times, right? So that's pretty cool. And then triplets.
Triplets.
Oh man!
Don't look at me like it's anything. Doctors and drugs.
Right. I was say right. First time. That was.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's it though.
Talking about knocking it out the park.
Yeah, you're like I'm
done.
Yeah.
Do you have a vasectomy?
No.
I would have. Boy, they would have both of them.
I'm just gonna leave these right here.
Yeah, y'all can have them.
No, it was for anybody who's gone down that pathway. I feel for you. It is a huge stress on a marriage, and I am thankful to this day that I have my kids, but it was definitely a journey.
Just having children, period.
Yes, yes.
In a marriage, but having 3 at a time, I couldn't.
When you immediately outnumber the parents with the kids, it's
Like you're losing
yes.
right from the start.
What I will tell anybody is if you're heading into triplets, a schedule, and don't get off that schedule.
Oh man! And make sure the schedule accommodates everybody, right? The kids, the husband, and the wife. Because I think that's
now you're
right?
going deep.
Yeah. Because it's like, let's get a schedule. It's like the kids are all straight. Now what about us? Right? It's like you forget, and then you forget about how you were before the kids came. It's like, let's remember us.
Yes.
So there's
So 3 kids, 3 triplets. Any stepchildren?
No.
New wife? Okay. Any desires to have more kids?
We tried.
Yeah. I got a buddy that's pregnant right now. I would have never thunk it. Like his wife came in and she was like, "Hey, we're pregnant." I was like, "Oh shit." She was like, "I know, right?" And I was like, because first I was like, "Congratulations." She was like, "No, I know, right?" And they have twins. So I was like, damn.
They have grown-up twins.
Grown-up twins, yeah. Like they're grandparents.
Yeah.
I'm sure you ask 100 people and you're going to get 100 different opinions. If you're right in your head and your heart, and who cares what your age is?
Yeah.
Now, I do get it. Some of especially like movie stars. Didn't Al Pacino or De Niro just have a kid?
Yeah.
And he's in his 70s. Maybe there's a point where you kind of go, all right, it's
Got to be a
time to
little bit more
stop.
responsible.
But now, I mean, they say 50 is the new 30 or whatever it is. So if you're in your 50s, go for it.
I mean, you just said you was 52. I didn't expect for you to drop
54.
that. 54.
I started jiu-jitsu when I was 52.
Okay, so I tell you this, you don't look 54.
Well, thank you.
You don't sound like it. And if you're doing jiu-jitsu, you definitely don't feel like it.
I feel it.
You feel it?
Oh, I feel it.
And I'm saying, you guys are talking about having children from a male's perspective, because women are definitely not having no babies at 50.
That is true.
That is true. Sure not having no kids at 70.
That is true.
But I just think that's one of those weird things that I don't know the universe gave men to be able to plentiful to
procreate.
For forever until freaking 70. That's bananas to me. You're not shooting out dust. It's still actually live living beings. But
damn
whatever.
it, still shooting live rounds.
That's a fact.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So I got a question, and Paul, you talked about. I thought you was gonna say it. You talked about being a knucklehead in high school, but so and all of us have to ask this question. It's like one of those. Have I ever? Right? Have you ever been in jail?
Got real
Who wants to go first?
Close. I'm the guest. I thought I was forced to go first.
Now you are.
real close. Real close.
Yeah, I went through what's the term? A kleptomaniac stage, where if it wasn't nailed down, I was stealing it. And I thought I was probably 12, 13 years old, whatever the hell it was. You think you're being slick, and nobody's knowing. And then one day, your dad comes in and hands a paper bag and goes, "What's all this?" It's like, oh, so.
And he found, yeah.
But no, other than just getting contacted by police, doing stupid stuff, lighting fireworks, drinking, that type, but never anything for whatever it was. And that's one of the interesting things that I've experienced doing my podcast, because so many of the ones who are successful, I feel like I relate to them, because they all seem to kind of come from this not perfect background, which kind of forces you to be more independent and more chance taking. And so I've talked to a bunch of guests who didn't lead the best path, but for whatever reason, we had good parents who at least instilled that good moral compass where, man, you got right to that edge, but you knew, because I'll tell you this, as much as a knucklehead as I was, I feared my dad more than any police officer. And the idea of having to call him from jail, no, lock the door.
Never happened.
Yeah. I'll be safer in here.
I hope my kids feel that way.
I know, right? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. They're like, Dad, come get me. I'm like, you motherfucker.
I had a lot of close calls as a kid. I, too, for whatever reason, was a klepto.
Sticky fingers.
Yeah, but I say it's because, I mean, I grew up with I didn't have a lot of money growing up, right? So we didn't have a lot of things. And it was easy to just take the things, right? And it wasn't even big things. It was small things like candy or, like me and my cousins, we would go and tear up a store, right? We'd have all kind of candies. When we got older, it was liquor. We would steal bottles.
In California, liquor's in a grocery store, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, how you steal liquor? In New York, there was no stealing liquor.
And we would walk out clinking, clink, clink, clink. I don't know how they didn't notice, but they did.
They knew.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I did go to jail when I was a kid once, and it's because I was stealing sandwich meat for my brothers and sisters we were gonna eat, and I think I may have gotten greedier. It was I don't know what had happened, but I ended up going to actual jail and getting fingerprinted and everything. But they let me go. I was only like 16, 17, I don't know. And small note kids, when I went, I was just telling our producer about being promoted. I was a bank teller and I got promoted to the vault teller. It's like an assistant to the branch manager. And they ran, they had to do a background check on me, and that came up. So that was so many years ago. And they still gave me the position, but they were just like, hey, we just want to let you know this came up.
You're on a short leash where you're under a scrutiny of an eye.
Yeah, and we want to, this is something that's on your history, so just want to make you aware of it. I'm like, shit.
So
that was such a long time ago.
You almost didn't get a great job.
Yeah.
Because of stealing Oscar Myers.
Yeah, legit as shit, man.
And that's kind of, I'm not making fun of it, but if you think about the reality of our system is you were stealing because you were hungry.
Yep.
And you almost couldn't get a job because of a choice that you had to make situational.
Yep.
Right? Because of the environment. Where something like that, it shouldn't even hit your record. It should have just been like, all right, let's just wash this.
I was shocked that it came up. Shocked. I was just like, what? I would have told them nothing would have come up, but it came up, but I still got the job. And I'm very grateful for that because they were like, it was a small fraction. It wasn't huge. So, but yeah, that was my time. And then as an adult, yes, I did get a DUI. So there's that.
Yeah, and that's just unfortunate. Yeah.
That's just one of those, like, always pushing the envelope. And it was before Uber. Uber now is, with Uber, why? Just call an Uber. It's $10.
Yep.
Get you home safe, unless your Uber driver's drinking, which is crazy, right? But
I think the most important thing that you said, and I'm sure it's hard for us to not sound like those old people when you're talking to younger people, but we have those laps around the sun and we understand the experience of our decisions. And so what I always say to people is we all make mistakes, but you've got to have that point to where you realize this could affect me long term. Do I want to keep going down this path?
Yeah, 1,000%. And as kids, we don't think about it.
No.
Even as young people, what I did yesterday, I'm not thinking about today, because yesterday I'm like, shit, I was younger yesterday. And today, you know what? I'm not going to do what I did yesterday. And to your point, yes, I did do a night in jail. Same thing like you. I had to do a night in jail for the same reason. But as a kid, I did a lot of things. I did. I think we all stole at some point. It's just one of those things where you felt like you get away with it. And then, of course, growing up where we grew up, we pushed the envelope too. We was product of environments, selling drugs and all that other stuff. It was just what you did in your environment. But I was afraid of my pop just like how you said, Paul, my pops was a Marine. The last thing I wanted to do was call him. I remember not being able to get home from a party one night, 2:00 in the morning, and I called him, and that was the worst phone call ever. And he didn't come get me. I had to walk home.
That's hilarious.
Because first of all, back
Was
in
it New York in January?
yeah, it was. I think it probably was. Yeah, because he had to work.
This'll teach him.
Yeah, he had to work the next day. There was no cell phones back then, so we had to go to a payphone, and it was me and my brother, and I was like, yo, we just gotta walk. Forget this. And again, I was like, I'm not gonna do anything that piss my pops off. I've already done a lot of things to piss him off, so I'm not gonna do it again. So.
It's so crazy. And again, not to sound older, but what would our kids do nowadays? Like if they, with no cell phone, and we told them get home the best way you could, and what would they do? I don't even know. I don't even know if my kids would make it home. I don't even know how they would get there.
No, we would have to go get them. They would keep calling.
But they don't have any cell phone. They have no quarters to keep on foot. I don't know if
they would figure it out. Our kids will figure. We've got weird phone calls from some weird numbers. We're like, who's this? Mom. Like, Taylor?
I was gonna say it's always Taylor. We were just like,
where are you?
This kid, we used to be like, she'd be late for school almost every day, and I'm like, I'm not taking you to school. She would have the police officer on the corner take her to school. I'm like, how did you even get him to take you to school? So yeah, you're
That's
right.
that kid.
You're
yeah.
right.
And we have 4 kids, so we have 4 kids.
That's your entrepreneur right there.
Sooner or later.
We hope so.
Jump on that roller coaster because it's going to take you for a ride.
Oh, she's taking
Yeah.
us.
So we have 4 kids and a granddaughter, and our kids are all older. The youngest is 17, and she actually works with us at the cafe.
Very cool.
And everybody else is out doing their own thing, all into their own thing. And our granddaughter is 3.5 years old, and well, I tell you, that is something different. Having a grandkid is something different, and we're expecting another one.
Yes. That's going to be something different.
That's going. Shit. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Paul. Do you feel that policing has changed since, I mean, you've been in the field since forever. Has it changed much to you in your experience? And how do you feel about that?
It's definitely changed.
For better or worse?
I guess it depends on what you define by better or worse. So I started my law enforcement career with the Rodney King riots. And I mean, actually, my academy class got rolled out of the academy to provide security at a lower level location. So that's where I kind of started my career. My blanket answer is go to work, do your job, and remember that you're a human being. We all talk about we all made mistakes as kids. I really honestly believe that because I made mistakes as a kid, it was much easier for me to relate to someone when they just made a mistake and have that empathy. I do believe that it's a relationship with the community. I was raised in an era where if you screwed up, your whole way home, basically you were in trouble because
1,000%.
the neighbor had a voice into what you were doing, and there was no. The worst thing you could do outside the house is disrespect your family. Mm-hmm. And so that was more embarrassing to the family. What did my son or my daughter do? On the flip side, I'm going to put myself up on a little bit of a pedestal here. I've never been sued for anything I've done in my career. I go to sleep every night knowing that the people who went to jail needed to go to jail. They committed a crime and they deserve to go to jail. Some people may not like this answer. It's a game. You sit down to play a game, whether it's baseball, Monopoly, or law enforcement. They have a way they're going to play. You have a way that you're required to play. Play the game by the rules. If you don't get them today, you'll get them tomorrow. And maybe it was because I started out at a small agency that really kind of built that mentality of, and the best example I can use, I'm a new officer, I'm out with a training officer, we arrest a guy, he was mouthy, and my training officer turns to me privately, goes, don't make it personal. Just let him be. And the thing that really drove it home is, you can have the fight now, but that guy's gonna come out of jail. And where do you think he's going to go back to when he comes out of jail? And now if he comes back with a grudge against you or a grudge against other law enforcement officers simply because you wanted to enforce your opinion, let it go. And so that's how I always did my career. Hey, you're going to go to jail. It's not personal. It's my job. And I've had people come up to me afterwards and say, hey, man, I appreciate that you were cool with me. You respected me. Because that's all people want. They just want respect.
1,000%. I couldn't agree with you more about understanding where people come from and saying that we all, we're knuckleheads, right? And when you get to a certain position, and if you reflect on that and have empathy, it makes you even better in that position.
Yes.
It was one of the things that I lived by when I was a manager. I would tell my team all the time, I was literally one write-up from being terminated. I was young, first corporate job after being in the military, and I'm just trying to be the best I can, but at being the best I can, I cut a lot of corners. And cutting those corners got me into some trouble to where I almost lost my job, literally within the first year of being hired. And then after that, I literally turned around. I was on, you remember this, I was on the verge of being fired, one more thing, and then I got hired as a manager, and just the trajectory of my position or my career changed after that. And every single team member that's ever been in my responsibility as a leader, I've told them the same exact thing. It's like, I understand where you are. I know what you're going through. I've been there. This is how we get you out of that. And it's just having that empathy and remembering, like, I've been in those shoes. I know what it's like. Like, all right, so how can we get you out of that?
Yeah, real talk. And thank you for your integrity, never being sued and always doing the right thing. I mean, that means a lot. In that position, it's very physically and mentally draining. Is there any techniques, or what did you do to deal with that, like the stress, or to cope with the day-to-day stress of that?
I wish I had a profound answer for you. I really don't know. One of the things that I've taken the opportunity with my podcast is to really stress the importance of the mental health component. You came from the military. I came up as a kid in a generation and in an era of law enforcement where you see something bad, push it down, don't say a word, move on to the next one.
Yep.
I'll consider myself fortunate that there hasn't been anything extremely overt that I've noticed, but at the same token, I've had those periods where I only felt comfortable around other officers because they know me. You're a veteran. I only feel comfortable around other veterans because they know me. You got to get outside yourself. And my new thing, if I could make a change in law enforcement today, I would want a brand new officer sitting in their patrol car with a training officer. They go to something horrific, whatever it is. You got some young man, young woman, 22 years old, 23 years old. They've probably never seen a child abused. They've probably never seen a dead body. Let's not even say horrific, just a dead body. How about when you get in the car when it's done, how'd that make you feel?
Yeah.
And make it okay to say, that rattled my Rubik's Cube between my ears. Let me go sit in the station for the rest of the shift, whatever it is. The other thing that I do believe that law enforcement has improved upon is for some of the bigger agencies that can afford it, and I have a good friend of mine who was a trainee of mine who's now a psychologist. She's been embedded in their police department. And I don't mean this dismissively, but she's now like that plant in the corner. People get used to just having her there as opposed to, hey, it's Thursday and the shrink's in the house, go talk to them.
Yeah.
But if they're always there, it gets easier to go and knock on the door and go, hey, doc, you got 10 minutes? I need to talk about something. We need to normalize that it's okay to say, what I've experienced is not normal, and I want to talk about it. I will throw myself under the bus and say that I fall into this trap even with my wife today. Now, fortunately, I'm significantly higher in rank, so I don't really experience a lot of it, but every once in a while, hey, how was your day? It was fine. And just dismiss it off.
Yep.
Now, obviously you don't want to come home and now throw it all on your spouse and like, whoa. You know, you've got to find that balance in how to talk to them and be able to, hey, I need to talk about what I experienced today. I'm going to leave out some of the specific details, but you do need to talk to your family. I say that after 30 years of law enforcement. I say that after 2 years of talking to men and women who have dealt with much worse in the sense of a personal battle, either attempting to or almost attempting suicide. And for me, what I've learned from this is we just need to normalize talking about it.
1,000%. And that's a great question, babe, because in 30 years, I mean, is there a case or a situation that still, you know, you kind of carry just a little bit up until today? Like, is there something on the back like, damn, if, or the person I am today would have handled the situation much better back then?
There's definitely, for me, and I think that every person is going to bring something different to the table. So I mentioned to you that it took doctors and drugs to get my 3 children. We lost our first 2 on that try. I've been off for work for a little while, handling it. First couple days back, there was a music store. We get a call. Hey, there's this guy. He's really drunk. He's on a bicycle, and you know those big plastic molded seats that they have on the back of bikes for kids?
Yeah.
Hey, he's got his kid in there. And so we get to the area, and I find him on his bike, but there's no kid. And so I was thinking, and initially you're thinking, oh, maybe the witness didn't see what they thought they saw. It was just him on a bike. And sure enough, about 2 or 3 minutes later, this guy pulls up in a car, kids all full of grass, because he had followed the guy. And he basically got close to a curb and fell over, and the kid rolled out into the grass. Didn't get hurt. To say I almost lost it is an understatement. Because of what I had experienced in losing a child, and this guy was so drunk that he didn't even, not even the fact that his kid was potentially hurt, that some stranger just went, hey, brother, let me just put the kid in my car, I'll follow you home. You know?
Yeah.
So that, for me... Now, the other, I've been to horrific death scenes. I've been to horrific suicide scenes. I've been to horrific car crashes. Of course, they all do, but that one.
Yeah. That still scary. How long ago was that?
This is probably pushing on, well, my kids are 18, so they're 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And I can remember it like it was yesterday.
I could imagine. And that's like one of those things where you have so much training. They give you so much training. But was there ever a time when there's a situation that you just didn't have training for? You're just like, oh shit, I was not trained for this, and now how do I handle it?
Not that I can specifically remember. I think the biggest thing for me to realize once I became a police officer, because I had gone on ride-alongs before I was a sworn officer, but you're never in a position of taking charge or anything like that. But when you have a situation, and I'll go to the extreme, you're pointing a gun at somebody and telling them to do something, and they're going, no. You know, it's like, it was the hardest thing because in the academy, they tell you, put your hands up, do it. And they do it. They comply.
Automatically.
Yeah.
And then the first time somebody doesn't do that, you're like,
What the fuck?
do you not see, you know, what's going on? Here's the flip side to it. So when I first started in law enforcement, we still carried shotguns in the car. I don't care who you are. The sound of a shotgun has an effect.
Oh, yes.
And just racking a shotgun got people's attention.
1,000%.
It will definitely freeze you, and you're like, ah.
That's like, oh, somebody came to play.
But the biggest thing is, except for an immediate action situation, I don't want to go down the path, but Uvalde or something like that, where you don't have the luxury to kind of step back and go, okay. But for the most part, there is never a situation where you can't take a pause and just go, all right, let me think about my next move. And if I don't know it, hey, senior guy, you've been here 10 years. What do I do from here? You don't need to go just like, oh, I think I'll try this. It doesn't need to be done that way.
So I gotta ask. I'm gonna take it a little bit lighter, and I heard a comedian say this one time, and I just have to ask: would you feel that if you had something in your gun that made people have like an orgasm or shit theirself, do you feel that it would stop them, right? They would stop in their tracks because they'd have an orgasm. They'd be like, ugh, they'd stop. Or they'd have to shit. So they'd be like, ugh.
Oh,
do you feel,
they don't know which one it's going to be, and
well,
you don't know.
No, perhaps you could choose which one you'd prefer, right? But would you rather have that than bullets?
If it was just orgasms.
Or shitting. I mean, if it was shitting, you wouldn't want them to shit. You rather
Because I'll put myself on the other side of it. I don't want to shit my pants.
So you would stop.
He's thinking about if somebody pulled a gun on him. He's like,
But hey, here's orgasm number 1. Are you finished? Orgasm number 2.
You might want to keep getting shot. So then it's gonna be shit. Then you gotta shit.
Yeah. I was about to say, because it could be that person that just be like, he keeps coming. Give me another one. It's like in the military, it's may I have another.
That's like come by cop.
Yeah.
It's a whole different
Could
thing.
you imagine having that discussion in a bar? So what was the best sex act you've ever been involved? Bro, this guy was shooting me and I would not stop coming.
Okay, so you have the shit.
You got to shit.
Oh, that would suck.
If it was me, I would put shit in my bullets. Yeah, you're about to stop right there.
Everybody's
The only thing you got to remember, though, is if you're willing to do it to somebody else, you got to be willing to be done to you.
Hey, if it stops me to make me think like, damn, I need to take it in.
I mean, listen, I don't want to be shot.
Take up my car all the way back to the jail.
I don't want to be shot, so I'm not going to want to shoot nobody either. So I'm not going to make anyone shit, and I don't want to shit.
Yeah.
But I would rather shoot somebody with something that's going to make them shoot. You're like, if they're trying to run out the house with my TV, I'm like, bow, and they're like, oh, they keep trying to run. They're like, I can't. They just fall to their knees.
Unfortunately, I think cops will take advantage of it still.
Hey, the one thing, whether it's an orgasm or shitting your pants, it's still going to leave a trail, so you'll be able to find them.
DNA is real.
Yeah. Probably make things much easier.
Just want to take it a little lighter.
Silly.
That's an interesting question.
So Transition Drill is an interesting name for a podcast. How did you come up with the name? And then, so this is a 2-part question. How did you come up with the name for the podcast? And then how did you take the skills and everything that you've been through in your work and career and life and move it over to the podcast?
I'll do the second one first. I can't take credit for coming up with the idea for the podcast. We're in the middle of COVID. My then chief at our management meeting says, hey, we need to have a network of the former investigators who have retired and gone on and done something different, other than just simply going to another law enforcement agency, who could be a source of information, mentors for anybody coming towards their retirement, like, hey, I want to reach out, so this network. And he goes, we got to figure out something like where we can have them come in once a month and just be able to ask, people could ask them questions about their transition. But I don't think he used the word transition. And so I immediately jumped on it because I was already listening to podcasts and we were going to be doing it over Zoom. So it was just like, oh, this sounds interesting. I did a couple of those sessions and I started getting emails from just my coworkers because it was just contained within my agency. Hey, you do a really good job. You should think about doing a podcast. So that's where it started coming from. I said, all right, I'm going to, and obviously the first thing was I'm just going to focus on first responders because we need, the one thing is these jobs they don't go forever. They do have an end date. Well, once you start doing the research, the one thing that we share with the military community is they do a great job of luring us in. They do a horrible job of
letting us go.
Yeah. It's basically, there's the door, have a nice day.
Thank you.
And you can look at the military. The one thing they do is they have the TAPS program, but talk to 95% of the people getting out of the military, they just want out.
Yeah.
I got to sit here to check the box, all right, and they're not paying attention. Then about 6 months down the road, you're like, maybe I should have paid attention to that resume class or something like that.
1,000%.
So it quickly went from the first responder community and the veteran community. And it was that transition to another job. Now, in my career, I've also had the opportunity of going down the tactical route and SWAT and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that we train ad nauseum are transition drills. Basically, you're firing your rifle, usually your primary platform, so it's a rifle. It goes down for whatever reason, whether it's simply ran out of bullets, it's jammed, whatever. If you're in a gunfight, you don't sit there and go, let me figure out, you put it down, transition to your sidearm, usually, and get back into the gunfight until you have time to figure it out.
And you said they teach you this ad nauseum. Tell me what that is.
It's just a million times. I mean, if you're on a tactical team, I guarantee you, anybody who's listening to this who's been on a tactical team, there's probably been an entire, maybe not an entire day, but a good half day of just transition drills. Because the thing is, you have to do it so many times that you don't even think about it. Because if you're engaging with somebody who's shooting at you, you need to transition and get bullets back in their direction. So it's a transition drill. But the thing that I took from it was, I wanted people to start looking at their transition the same way. Don't think about it when it's time for it to happen. Start thinking about it today. Start preparing for your transition today so that when you get to it tomorrow, because unfortunately, the other thing that we share in the veteran community and the first responder community is tomorrow can literally be tomorrow, even if you're not planning for it.
1,000%.
You're doing something today, you slip, you fall, boom, a back, a leg, an arm. It may not debilitate your entire life, but it gets to a point where either the government or your agency goes, hey, we're sorry about your knee, we're sorry about your back, but you can't do this anymore. And now you're in a position of,
now what?
Shit.
Yep.
And I've had those guests. You know, I've had Jose Rodriguez, another gentleman who lives up in the Paso area. He gets into a foot pursuit, messes up his knee. He's sitting in his car, and it's just like, all of a sudden, just the pain hits to the point he can't even step out of the car. He gets helped up, goes to the hospital. No big deal. It's a knee injury. Okay. Well, unfortunately, what he didn't know, and when they put him on medication, was he now developed blood clots. So then they had to put him on blood thinners. Well, as soon as he's on blood thinners, it's, you can't be a cop anymore. Yeah. So, you know, talk about not wanting to give up your career and having the rug just literally pulled out from underneath you. So I'll go back to when I was a training officer, and I would have a new officer in the car with me, and they would say, should I go to college? Yes, go to college. Yeah. But don't go get a criminal justice degree, because it won't do you any good if you leave this. Go get a degree in accounting or something that you could do today or tomorrow if you lose this job. So that's the backbone of this podcast, is just start thinking today about what you're going to do tomorrow.
Damn, that's so crazy, because everything that you're saying reminds me of like a football player, or I read the Power of Habit, and it talks about Tony Dungy and how he trained his team, right? Like those picks over and over again, the same thing over and over. They're like, why are we doing this over and over again? And then when they're in the actual game, it just came like second nature, right? And so that's crazy. And then to have like a football player too, to know that the rug could be snatched from under you, and this is a career that you have literally spent your whole life wanting to do, and now all of a sudden you can't do it. So that's crazy. It's definitely, you guys are athletes, and that's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and the transition term is so profound, because like I was saying earlier, that's been a conversation that I've had more this year, and I've actually been asked, because when I transitioned out of the military, I was homeless at some part of that. So it was, you get out the military, you have all these credentials, you have all this education and these skill sets, but then you're overqualified. You know, when I got out, it was 2009 when I was completely done with it. But my first time out was in 2007-ish or somewhere around there. But I couldn't get a job. I even went for the FBI. I went for Secret Service. I tried to get into law enforcement because I thought that was what I would be comfortable with. But my transition wasn't dialed in. And now, as an entrepreneur, I think about transition. And I think about my brothers and sisters that's coming out of the military, and even having a daughter now in the military, and thinking about her transition and coming out. It is a very important subject. It's a topic. I'm glad that you have a podcast to kind of coach people through that process, because to your point, law enforcement, military, no matter where you are, it is a transition, or it is a different world, because the amount of people that actually do that job is significantly less than any other job that you could think of in the United States. And so when you come out of this ecosystem of we're the same, to being a normal human being in your neighborhood, in your community as a civilian, it takes some wrinkles that needs to be ironed out, because you're a different human being. Mm-hmm. Being in law enforcement for 30 years, I mean, what kind of things that you, this is another two-part question. What would you tell someone going into law enforcement today? in 2023, like, because you said in 88, completely different world, right? What would you tell someone going into law enforcement today, and what kind of practices and mechanisms do they need to have in place to be able to do it for 30 years? Because you're fortunate to come from an era where it was push it down, get over it. It's not like that today. Now everybody's more vocal, they're more vulnerable, and there are practices out there. And you said you're a high level leader now, and so what kind of things? And I'm sorry, because we've been talking forever now. It seems like we could keep going. So we also have to get you prepared for your final thought and how we're going to find you, because we've been going at this for almost an hour. So again, what would you tell somebody brand new?
Conversations have no time limit.
Exactly. What would you tell somebody brand new coming in, and then what kind of practices to get to a career that's have been exciting and beautiful as yours for 30 years?
I will definitely try to paraphrase this down to not draw out the conversation longer. First, foremost, have fun. It's a great career. You're going to meet some amazing people in this career. You'll have the opportunity to do some amazing things. Have fun. 2023, go in, grab your department policy, and learn it. Learn what you are allowed to do and what you are not allowed to do, and learn in what situations you are given discretion to deviate from what's the policy.
Okay.
Know it forward and backwards. Think twice about what you put on social media. Because if you don't think that what you post on social media is going to get put in front of a jury during a jury trial, you're mistaken. So think about what you post on social media. Don't enforce your opinion. Enforce the law. If the law's been broken, enforce the law. If you just don't agree with what the person's doing, but it's not a crime, what do you care? Move on with it. Make being off work and time with your family and time with your friends as important as when you're at work. It's just a job. I say this all the time. When a plumber is not working, they're not walking around with a monkey wrench going, hey, whose toilet's backed up?
Oh, that's right.
Facts.
When-
Cheers to that.
I know that's right.
When they go home, the last thing they want to think about is a stopped up toilet.
I know it.
Okay? When a doctor's not working, he or she's not walking around with a stethoscope around their neck. Okay? So leave work at work. Go to work, do your job right, have fun, but leave it, make it just somebody who's in the military is going to experience horrendous things. We as people are not meant to deal with a lot of that. It's not natural for us. So understand that if it affects you more, first off, don't compare yourself to anybody else. If it affects you, go talk to somebody, deal with it. If it doesn't affect you to the point that you're almost ambivalent to it, look at yourself a little deeper, because how are you able to turn it off that much? So I could go on forever, but
I love that.
That was great, and that's not just for. I gotta say this. That's not just for law enforcement.
Yeah, that's life.
That's everybody.
Actually, that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
That is definitely life and shit.
Yeah, that's life and shit. That's for every entrepreneur, everybody out there. Like that is fucking beautiful. Paul, we know the name of the podcast is Transition Drill. Where can we find it? What's your hashtags? Your handles, social media handles. Where can people find you? How can they keep in touch with you?
you can find the audio side anywhere. Apple, Spotify, even some like Google, anywhere. Transition Drill. You can find it on YouTube, Transition Drill Podcast. You can go to the website, transitiondrillpodcast.com. I just recently started a subreddit, Transition Drill Pod, because Transition Drill Podcast is too long. But yeah, anywhere and everywhere. Instagram, I use my name, Paul Pantani, as my Instagram handle. On TikTok, it's Transition Drill Podcast. Twitter, it's my name, Paul Pantani. But anywhere and everywhere, I'm trying to blast it out.
I love it.
Super dope.
Love it. All right. Love you.
I love you. That's life and shit. Appreciate you, Paul.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. do us a favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Leave a review. Let us know what your thoughts are. That's the only way that this show is going to be successful. And we appreciate you. Talk with you next time.